Hello YouTuber and Viewmaster friend, 3D and retro enthusiast. We are very happy that you are here. Please keep your stereo viewer and the Viewmaster 3D reel set ready, which we show here in our video. Even if you don't have this 3D picture set yet, maybe you can just listen to our spoken text and imagine the motifs in your own fantasy world. Now listen to the following audio video while you take your time looking at the 3D images and switching accordingly frame by frame. This is the 3D Viewmaster science fiction adventure Planet of the Apes, a CBS television series. Viewmaster Reel 1, Picture 1. In a deserted woods, an old man wearing tattered homespun clothes slept under a tree. "Go get him, Doc," someone yelled, as a yelping dog charged. Pharaoh awoke in terror and scrambled up the tree. "What did you find, Doc?" asked Arno, a young chimpanzee emerging from the shrubs. Reaching the tree, he looked up. "That's enough, Doc. It's only a human," he sighed. Picture 2. A blast of wind, a roar, a flash of light followed by a tremendous crash dazed Arno. In a clearing nearby, Arno saw a strange object shaped something like a giant bullet. Unseen behind him, the human, Pharaoh looked in wonderment. He stared a moment, then ran back into the woods, headed for Chelo, a village of human farmers and laborers, to report to his father Veska, prefect of the village. "Come on, Doc," he yelled. Picture 3. Pharaoh cautiously emerged from the woods, gazing in wonder at the strange smooth object that lay smoking on the ground. Fearful, but with great curiosity, he inspected the object, found a lever, pulled it. Terrified by a loud crackling, he dashed away, stopped short to watch a section lift away to make an entrance. Picture 4. With great caution, Pharaoh entered the object and stood in awe of the many dials, instruments, and blinking red and green eerie lights. Strapped in contour seats, 3 humans dressed in white sat slumped over. Jones, Virdon, and Burke. Pharaoh carefully examined Jones, listening for a heartbeat. He was dead. Sadly, Pharaoh turned to Virdon and Burke. Finding them still alive, he smiled. Picture 5. Carefully, one by one, he removed the 2 survivors from the still smoking cockpit. He had hidden Burke and was carrying Virdon on his shoulders when he heard the hoof beats of galloping horses. Only apes rode horses. It must be a search party from the village of Chelo. Panting, Pharaoh dragged Virdon through the shrubs to a rotting hidden door, which stood ajar. Picture 6. As Pharaoh pulled Virdon into an old shelter, Veska, Arno, and 3 gorillas rode up to the sand pit. 2 uniformed gorillas kept guns ready as Veska and Turfo entered a strange white object, amazed by its interior and Jones. "It's a human!" Arno cried, watching his father from outside the entrance. "There were 2 others. I wonder where they are." "We'll find them," Turfo said menacingly. Veska ordered Turfo to ride to Central City with a note for Zeus, chief counselor. Picture 7. Meanwhile, in the shelter, Virdon and Burke came to, looked around in a daze. Suddenly, Virdon concealed himself beside the door, almost attacking Pharaoh, who entered offering fresh fruit. "Who are you?" Where are we? Virdon asked. This is for eating, Pharaoh reassured. Viewmaster Reel 2. Picture 1. In his study in Central City, Cyrus, dressed in brown robes, and his young assistant, Galen, received Vesca's note. Humans aren't technicians. This message is fantasy, Galen said, puzzled. Destruction isn't fantasy, Cyrus shouted suddenly. You have a great deal to learn. Back in Chelo, Vesca warned an assembly of humans to beware of dangerous strangers. Disturbed by the news of the spaceship, Cyrus mused over a small grenade acquired from other humans who landed a ship years ago. He recalled a frequent nightmare in which fantastic humans built complex machinery, all designed for destruction. With Galen, Cyrus took the message to Security Chief Urko, a burly gorilla. Picture 2. Another ship? Urko exclaimed angrily. The humans must be found and killed, like the others. Not before questioning them, Cyrus said. Over Urko's grumbling, Cyrus told of the other astronauts' great knowledge and feelings of independence and freedom. We have to learn how they think. I want the astronauts alive for now, Cyrus insisted. Ordered to go with Urko, Galen said, It's a shame they have to be killed at all. Picture 3. In the shelter, Virdon and Burke donned clothes like those worn by human villagers. They learned that the apes controlled the planet. Are there any humans on the High Council? Burke asked, bewildered. Humans are nothing. They've always been nothing, except in storybooks. Pharaoh explained, removing a worn old book from its hidden place. Stunned by a picture of the New York City skyline, the astronauts realized they could not go home. They were already on Earth. Virdon and Burke concluded they must have gone through a time warp. Anxiously, they awaited morning, planning to check the ship's chronometer. Picture 4. Carrying his precious book, Pharaoh led the astronauts back to the ship, where they spied an armed gorilla on guard. I'll get rid of him. Pharaoh rushed out, shouting that he had seen 2 humans. Come on, you can catch them. With the way cleared, Virdon and Burke ran to the ship and climbed inside. The chronometer read the year as 3085, more than 1,000 years in the future. Hearing a shot ring out, they raced out of the ship and saw Pharaoh bleeding on the ground. Something clicked behind them, and they whirled to face 2 gorillas with aimed rifles. From horseback, Urko and Galen watched. Picture 5. As the gorillas finished tying Virdon and Burke on horses, Urko approached. Burke protested about leaving Pharaoh to die. Urko, outraged by the complaint, whirled and clubbed him, then aimed his gun. I can do what I want, human. Urko, no, Galen cried. Urko glared. As the gorillas moved out with their captives, Virdon asked Galen to see to Pharaoh. Finding him dead, he picked up Pharaoh's book. Picture 6. In the council room, the astronauts were questioned by Zeus, Urko and other apes. Urko insisted that enemies of the state must be put to death immediately, no questions. When Virdon said he believed all creatures, we are equal and should learn to live and work together. A great uproar resulted. Silence! Silence! Cyrus shouted. Picture 7. To demonstrate his point, Urko took a grenade stolen from Sayers' study and blew out the door. Would an ape build such a thing? He asked. Sayers and the others agreed the astronauts' minds had to be probed. Momentarily defeated, Urko glared furiously. Viewmaster Reel 3. Picture 1. Bothered by a picture in Pharaoh's book, Galen asks Sayers whether there was ever a time when humans controlled the world and apes were kept behind bars. That's heresy. I could have you imprisoned for that, Sayers answered tensely. Unsatisfied, Galen visited the astronauts and learned of a world beyond his imagination. Desperate to obtain the flight control record from the ship so they could somehow return home, Virdon asked Galen's help in escaping. Galen refused but asked to come back later to talk more about the book. Picture 2. That night, Virdon and Burke were sitting forlornly on the floor when the guard pushed in a bowl of food, leaving the door ajar. Suspecting a trap, the astronauts swung the door open slowly and hesitated inside. Picture 3. Galen, coming to visit the talking humans, saw gorilla guards about to shoot Virdon and Burke at the door. Galen shouted, "Run! Run!" and jumped the guard with the rifle. The astronauts escaped in the confusion, but now had to rescue Galen. Stealing into Sayers' study, they demanded his cooperation, threatening him with a grenade. "You'll destroy me as your kind once destroyed its world," Sayers said angrily. Picture 4. The astronauts used Sayers as a decoy to lure the guard outside the prison. "Call him," Virdon commanded Sayers. When the guard stepped out, Burke clubbed him. Working fast, they bound and gagged Sayers and looked through the guard's pockets for a key to Galen's cell. Finding none, they moved off down the corridor. Galen's face appeared at the opening in a cell door. "What are you doing here?" Picture 5. Discovering that Urko kept the keys, Virdon contemplated the grenade in his hand. He told Galen to lie on the floor in the corner, face down, with his hands over his head. Virdon set the grenade and placed it at the cell door. Both ran down the corridor. As they hit the floor, wham! "Come on," Burke said, pulling Galen out of the cell. Picture 6. Hearing the blast, Urko and 2 gorilla guards who come running from another era found a jagged hole instead of a cell door. Rushing out of the prison, they peered into the dark, but the fugitives were not inside. Picture 7. After hiding out for several days, Virdon, Burke and Galen returned to a deserted spaceship. The interior had been demolished. While Burke and Galen stood watch, Virdon tried frantically to remove the magnetic flight control disc which held their future. Galen heard galloping horses and Burke shouted, "They're coming! Hurry!" The 3 quickly fled the ship. The astronauts and their new chimp friend, Galen, zigzagged through the woods with the flight control disc, hoping to find a way back through the time warp somehow. We want to add new videos every day, and if you don't want to miss any of them, subscribe to our channel for free.
And press the little bell. We are also happy to have a thumb up.